Hey everybody, this is Matt Wakeling and you're listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you're safe and well wherever you are in the world. Now today, for episode number 141, our friend Adam Miller rejoins us on the show. Now I first met Adam about 3 years ago through the Sydney Guitar Festival, and in April 2018 he appeared on episode number 80 of the podcast, and we spoke about his career in depth up until that stage. Now, Adam's had a pretty exciting couple of years, so it's been very cool to get him back on the show. He's got a fantastic new album called Unify, which is out, which we talk about. Now, this new album's very much inspired by his relocation. Adam and his wife relocated from Newcastle on the east coast of Australia over to California on the west coast of the United States. So it's pretty cool tracing those steps. So yeah, we talk about the album, what it's like to find his feet in a whole new nation, being part of the Two Rock family. Heaps of cool stories coming up in this interview. Now, Adam's got a guitar in hand, and he demonstrates some of the cool parts from the record as well. So let's jump straight into it. Adam Miller, welcome back to the Guitar Speak podcast.
Oh, my pleasure for being here. It's so awesome to be back.
Man, I was super excited to hear about your new record and really thrilled that you'd gotten in touch. So that's great. I think the last time we spoke was when you released The Defining of Success. So that was back in 2018.
Yeah, correct.
Man, and the new album Unify, it seems like a lot of it's wrapped up in your move to the States, to the United States of America from Newcastle in the last couple of years. Wow.
Yeah, definitely inspired by that whole journey of packing up life and still chasing the dream in my late 30s. So it's definitely a big part of all the music and the inspirations on it.
That's awesome, man. That's so cool. Maybe we should talk about that first then, the move.
Yeah.
And what surrounded it, and that'll tie in with the with the album. So talk me through it. What was the initial spark of this for you?
I guess sort of been thinking about it for a long time, and I had the work visa for the US. The visa you have to get to be able to play a show full stop.
Yeah.
Means that you can live there while you have it. So, but I'd sort of been putting it off because I had a really good university teaching job.
Yeah.
So that sort of just, funded life while I was in Australia, and then allowed me to travel and tour. But that sort of all finished up at the end of 2018.
Okay.
I think, was it? Yeah. Yes. And so it just sort of left me in a bit of a limbo of just where to go and what to pursue. So the only sort of way forward was to just sort of take it all on in the US and try and make the most of sort of being on the ground there. I guess like the biggest thing I realized, it's sort of unfortunate, and is that when you're I don't want to totally generalize, but I will, is that Americans think Australia is really far away.
Yeah.
Like so far, and it's such an ordeal to travel. And I kind of always said to people, hey, yeah, I live in Australia, but I can be in the US tomorrow.
Yes.
If there's something on, if there's tours, supports, gigs, just let me know. I can be there. But no one really got that. Uh-huh. So it sort of meant I really had to be on the ground there for a while to cement some things and, jump into new territory and opportunities.
Sure. And the process, the idea I get, it's quite an involved process to develop. So you like we spoke about last time, and you just mentioned you had the visa to work. Is it another process again to be able to live there for an extended period?
It's not really once you have that.
Oh, okay,
like basically just turn up and don't leave.
Cool. So you already had a lot of that groundwork done.
Yeah, so that was fine. It was more just the fact of then when you're in a whole nother country's financial system, and I'd never had a US bank account. I'd managed to sort of cash checks before I came back to Australia from tours, and just change it back to Australian dollars. And or keep a little dodgy, envelope filled with my US savings.
Okay.
So to avoid, the changing of currencies. So yeah, just things like that, like going to have to set up a bank account and then realizing like how much credit scores affect things, and then realizing that we couldn't get a place to rent because we didn't really have rental history
Sure.
and didn't have like this credit score thing that, is your whole world in the US and takes about a year to build up before you even have it. So there are a
Okay.
few life shocks that I just didn't really consider before moving.
When people like are moving to Australia or trying to get work here, there's the idea of being sponsored by an
Yep.
employer. Is there any connections that you had to do, or are you just turning up as a sole trader essentially?
Oh, yeah, the legalities are grey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a visa sponsor.
Right.
You have to have a visa sponsor. It's not just turning up by yourself. There is a visa you can get, which basically just means you have a lot of money, and it's designed for celebrities to be able to move to the US.
Okay.
But I didn't qualify for that.
Okay.
So yeah, I have an American visa sponsor, but they really have nothing to do with my day-to-day life and
Okay.
getting gigs. So
Sure.
it's really, the same business as being a musician in Australia, just in a different country, and it's just a different process of the day-to-day life side of it, I guess.
Yeah, sure. So you went over
Yeah.
there with your partner and
Yeah, my wife Holly.
your
Yeah.
wife Holly. Yeah, awesome. And you've I mean you've been there plenty of times, both sides of the US, and
Yep.
I know you've done heaps of gigs and all that kind of stuff there. But when you rock up there, so you and Holly and some guitars. What guitars did you take?
Yeah, straight into guitar talk. It's
Now
much more
the
fun.
the
You
important
know,
issue
on
is what guitars.
Yeah, exactly. I took the two electric guitars that I'm most associated with, the Telly,
Yeah.
thin line Telly that I built from parts quite a number of years ago now, and my signature Nick Huber model,
Uh huh.
and I took an acoustic with me as well, and so that's sort of what I had for the year there, outside of a couple of guitars I got lent
Okay.
for a little while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Cool. And you are on the West Coast, is that right?
Yeah, we tried to base ourselves predominantly in Los Angeles,
Yep.
just because it does feel like home. I really find LA is very similar to Newcastle,
Okay.
which
Yep.
people, will find weird, especially like, Sydney siders that have never actually come to Newcastle ever, maybe,
Right.
which I know
Yep.
a lot have. But it's, just sort of, it's like sort of this place where you get to LA, and I'm going to say Newcastle's probably the same, where if you don't know where to go, you turn up and you just go, this place is terrible. I don't get it. But then once you know a few people and know the right place to hang out and the right, bar or pub to go to, then it just becomes this whole next level of a great community. And LA especially just starts to feel a lot smaller, and you forget about the whole Hollywood side of it and
Okay.
all that sort of things. And it's very homely. So we based ourselves there, but we did spend a lot of time on the road. So we didn't have a place for the time we were there. We were just sort of
Okay.
living in a place for 2 or 3 weeks,
Yep.
and then we would move out, go on tour for 3 or 4 weeks, come back, find somewhere else. So it was a very vagrant lifestyle for a while.
Wow. And were you digging it or was it challenging?
Oh, look, it
Both?
always has its challenges,
Yeah.
but I think the adventure of a lot of it kept us going and kept us
Yeah.
sort
Awesome.
of motivated. And um, we'd always set up our lives in a way that to be able to live out of a suitcase
Yep. Yep.
and just with a few guitars. And so yeah, it came together. It came together pretty well, but it was definitely, um, yeah, it was an incredible adventure through that time.
So gigs, are you drawing on past contacts you've already had?
Yeah, definitely through touring. It was so when I got there, I had a few months interspersed lined up of shows.
Okay. Yeah.
But I also intentionally didn't try and book everything.
Yeah.
It was also just trying to have some time on the ground to connect with people and really just see what happens, because that's the thing haven't had time to do in the past.
Sure.
Yeah, I've been touring the US like consistently, like 2, 3, 4 times a year since 2010,
Yeah.
I think.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
And but when I'm there, it's like go, go, go. You're just trying to fit as many shows in as fewer days as you can, so you're not spending a huge amount of money in traveling and accommodation. So yeah, so that was the real difference in this time, is actually being able to have some space and take time and work my way somewhat into a new scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
And I guess like the biggest thing was that so when we went over in early January, and that was basically turned up at the NAMM show in Anaheim.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always an amazing hang, and it's a great networking thing as well.
Yeah. Nice.
Basically, while it is a trade show of companies, there's every musician ever is there. And so just being able to be on the ground and say, hey, yeah, I'm here now, was really amazing. And a lot of opportunities developed out of that. And then the other huge thing was that week, it was actually, I got the phone call about this on the day we landed, and I was having the afternoon jet lag nap where you're completely messed up.
Yeah.
And I saw I had a missed call on my phone from my friend Mason Stoops, who's a little bit of a Instagram guitar sensation in a way, but he's an incredible musician, and most recently has been playing in Jackson Brown's band, actually.
Oh, really? Wow. I didn't know he's doing that. That's cool.
So, but anyway, he runs this event in LA, which is notorious, called Guitarco.
Uh-huh.
And he ran a huge NAMM edition and asked me to be a part of it. And so that was insane, because it was just every guitar player like I'd ever heard of was in the audience, or I was playing with them. It basically, I guess to paint the picture, it was in the back of a coffee shop somewhere near Anaheim. I can't really remember. And so Mason set up 2 sets. The first set, so with bass and drums, and then 4 guitar players.
Uh-huh, cool.
And so, 5 actually, 5 guitar players. And the first 5 were all LA locals. And then the second 5 were out-of-towners, and he put me in that set, seeing as though I was an out-of-towner at that point.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
How do you... So 5 guitar players, how do you get your point across without getting your point across 5 other players? How do you work in that situation to be a win-win?
Well... there is no way and this is the thing about these nights, they're very much, because they're curated by Mason.
Yeah.
He picks guitar players that he knows have a sensibility about them. Mm-hmm. So in my set, it was myself, Mason, Horace Bray, who's another bit of a like Instagram sensation guitar player, I guess. Uh-huh. Especially like does a lot with the pickup jazz site and that sort of thing. Ariel Posen was next to me.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
And Charlie Hunter.
Charlie Hunter, what a nice connection. Had you guys met before?
Yeah, Charlie and I have been good friends for a long time now.
Okay.
So
yeah, because I remember maybe talking about him, yeah.
Yeah, he's a huge influence on me, like personally and career-wise. But so being around those guys, no one was trying to prove everything. And the other thing is the whole thing is improvised. Like there was no set list. Mm-hmm. I remember, before we were asked to submit songs to play, like just maybe everyone lead a song.
Okay, yeah.
and I remember on the night I got there and realized no one had submitted any but me.
Okay.
So we did end up playing, I think, 2 of my songs, and then the rest were just, sort of old soul R&B standards. So there was no idea. It was just like someone started it and then it just went.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was a pretty magical night, and it's just and it just led to so many opportunities because so many people saw me play that night.
Okay, yeah.
That either, especially in the US, had never heard of me or had associated me back with more my solo acoustic guitar days rather than playing an electric guitar, which is 2 very different worlds in the US.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Because the defining of success was largely a trio album, and the new album, Unify, same kind of setup, guitar, bass, drums.
Same thing.
Which seems to be, a big part of your voice.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think it's just more that that's the music I prefer to listen to.
Okay,
that's simply what it is. And I do like playing solo, and a lot of my touring is still solo. Yep. And then I did release like an EP of a few of the songs off the Defining of Success last year. There were just solo acoustic versions of them for people that wanted to hear that. But I just love the sound of drums and bass.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Awesome. Was the new album, I think it was mostly recorded over there?
Yeah, yep.
Nice.
We so throughout the year, we're in LA till July, so about 6 months, and then we had to come home for a couple of things back to Australia. Then I went back just by myself for 2 months because I had a number of shows and things to do. Mm-hmm. Came back sort of towards the end of the year, and I'd actually tried to record the album when I was there for the 2 months, but no one's schedules would align, and it just fell apart. So I ended up flying to LA just for a week before spending Christmas in Australia to get it all tracked down. And so it was mainly done there, but being classic guitar player, I did come home and redo a few of the guitar parts later.
Sure. Tell me about your rhythm section. Those guys are killer.
Yeah, so starting with drummer, so Justin Glasgow. Justin, I met at that Guitarco show.
Okay.
He was who Mason had been working with him quite a bit, and so he was the drummer on that night. And we just got along really well. So that was great. He spends most of his time actually as a producer.
Okay.
And as a recording engineer, so he does a lot of cool stuff in LA, and he's moved around quite a lot too, and he'd sort of just moved back to LA at that time. So that was great. And he's a phenomenal drummer, and he's played on some massive things. Like one of the ones that just shocked me was I'm trying to think of who the song is called 1,000 Years, and it was in Twilight.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I only know it because my sister walked down the aisle to that song at a wedding.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, while we were recording the album, something came up. I don't know. Anyway, but found out that he played the drums and the bass on that session.
And the bass, wow. That big 6/8 kind of.
Yeah.
So, man, that's cool.
So that's just one example. I actually have no idea of his full credits, but I'm sure there's more insane stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then, sort of working my way into the whole LA scene, Justin invited me randomly just to this jam session that these bunch of guys have at one of the guys' garage. And so I went on a massive, because I was living on the other side of LA. I think it took me an hour and a half to get there.
Okay.
It was like, he's like, yeah, we're meeting in about half an hour. And I was like, oh, so I looked at public transport and that was going to take 2 hours and 45 minutes. And so I jumped in an Uber and then that was still an hour 30. So I got there pretty late. But so that was at the bass player on the album's house in the end, whose name is Joel Gottschalk. And Joel, I guess, biggest gig to date was playing, he was Philip Sace's bass player
awesome.
forever, up until only like a year or two ago, I think, where he kind of settled more with the family in LA. So, so Joel's just got this attitude to the way he plays bass. It's amazing. Like he's just there and gives 100% all the time. So, and once again, we just got along like old friends. So just chatting and hanging out. And so, yeah, they're the guys that I ended up sort of getting to do most of my trio shows around LA, pending availability, of course.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, then when I went to do the album, it was just because, they were the ones that I'd been hanging out with the most. They were first choice.
I love the trio idea because it gives you a lot of harmonic space, but also the bass a lot of room to move around as well. I've enjoyed that on the last couple of records a lot.
Yeah, well, I think especially, and this goes back to the whole Charlie Hunter influence, I guess, for me, is that the bass is so much a part of what I hear as a listener. And I love giving it, I like bass players that are busy, but their tonality sort of doesn't get in the way of the guitar, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I'm always encouraging bass players to play more.
You got to be the only guitar player in the Western world doing that, but I'm glad you are because I love it.
Yeah, it's just such a cool thing to sort of hear, and like, especially, yeah, like when you listen to Charlie Hunter's records, the bass is fairly busy, like what he's doing with his thumb, but it just gives it all this movement that you can't achieve via, a guitar or an organ or something over the top.
Yeah. Yep. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. That's really fun. Let's talk about some of the songs.
Yeah, sure.
Defining of Success had all 1-word titles. You've got a couple of 2-word titles. There's even a 3-word title, but a lot of short ones. Do the titles chronologically tell your story?
Ooh, chronologically? No.
No? Okay. Because, Leaving is number 3, so...
Yeah, no, I couldn't work it out that
Sure,
well.
sure.
It's funny, when you're making an album, especially now, it's gone back to working out how it will fit on vinyl.
Okay, yep. That's
cool.
So,
In fact, the final song list is probably not what it would have been exactly or song order, I should say, if it had just been a digital or CD release. So
okay, wow.
I actually jigged it so it'd fit on vinyl, and then I would have the same track order when you got it on CD. Because the last album wasn't. I had to leave a song off, and I had to change the song order on the vinyl, and that sort of frustrated me in a way.
For sure, yeah. So you're dealing with like 2 sides.
Well, yeah. Like that's the thing is, a vinyl maximum is 22 minutes a side.
Okay.
And that's, sort of keeping the volume down. So it might not be as loud as a like pumping rock vinyl. And I think the last 2 albums have ended up that they basically are like, and this is a fluke. This just happens like really when I get to the end. I'm not thinking about it the whole time. But, both albums are basically like 21 minutes and 50 seconds per side.
Okay, wow.
So they only just fit.
Maybe just that aesthetic has just sunk into you subconsciously, so you just know when to wrap up a side or something. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's because I try to keep songs shorter on records. I did an album where everything was like 10-minute songs. And then I just recently have just gone, I'll just try and keep it all shorter. But yeah, it's funny. Like, I think a few of the songs actually did get, a solo section taken out just because I thought it was too long. But if I'd left those things in, it wouldn't have fit on vinyl. So,
Okay.
Yeah. So to answer your question, no, it's not a chronological order.
Okay. Let's talk about well, I'm just going to call out a few tunes, I guess. Adam Levy.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love Adam Levy. I met him. I've never met him. I met him through Guitar Player magazine, reading his writing,
Oh, nice.
and it just seemed such really heartfelt. Then I heard him on the Nora Jones records, and then his own stuff, and I know he's doing stuff with Mason now as well. So I've not met the man, but I've just there's these different insights, and then I hear your tune. What's that about? How do you know Adam? How does he get a piece named after him?
Okay, so Adam I met at a small bar in Fairfax, California, which is North Bay, sort of like, so San Francisco Bay Area, sort of hippie town. And it was at a small acoustic night that was run by one of the editors of Acoustic Guitar magazine. And I met him there that night, and I played, like, we kind of, did our own little sets as part of this thing. And we just got along really well again. And I was a huge fan, so that probably helped. And then I think I went and saw him play a number of times in New York when he was living there. And we'd meet up for coffee and just hang. We'd never really play guitar together, funnily enough. And it's just our friendship has grown over the years. Like, he's one of the he's the only musical friend of mine from around the world that's actually been to a house where I lived in Australia.
Okay. Gotcha.
So, that's pretty tight.
Yeah.
We did do a show in Newcastle together, maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay. Wow. Cool.
Which was quite amazing when he was on tour here with someone else, and I saw it. I just went, "Hey man, you've got a night off. Come up from Sydney." And so that was great. So yes, great friend, huge influence, once again on me from the point of view of his playing, but also how he conducts his career.
Mm-hmm.
Just, the way he can go from playing like with huge artists one night on huge stages to playing a coffee shop at 7:30 a.m. the next morning.
Yeah.
Unamplified with an acoustic guitar. I love that about him, and I love that it's all about the music in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So it wasn't intentional to write a song for him. I played, it was one of these other cool things that you could only do in LA, which was a similar organized jam session that was called Boba Jam. And it was at a boba tea store. And I don't know if Australian listeners will even know what boba tea is.
No, don't think so. What's that?
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
I didn't have one. I always got the cold brew coffee there. But it's like these cold drinks, and it's got these giant black bubbles in it. I don't know. Anyway, boba tea, it's a thing. It's in Hollywood movies and TV shows, and the kids all love it. So Boba Jam happened on Thursdays at 10 a.m., 10 till 12. And it was run by Shania Twain's guitar player, Joshua Ray Gooch. And so he would just call a bunch of friends and get them to play. And so the week I played was a great drummer, bass player, keys player, Joshua on guitar, and Adam and myself on guitar. And another completely improvised gig. Actually, that one is totally improvised. Joshua doesn't like even playing standards. He just likes starting something.
Wow.
and seeing
That's
what
cool.
happens. So that was a really incredible day. And like even the first song, like everyone just finished and went, whoa, because it was really beautiful and slow, and it wasn't what you think a jam session is going to be.
Hmm.
And then so we were all in this moment of just going, wow. And then there was a massive earthquake. And it was outside, so it was okay, but like the whole of
Wow.
Los Angeles rocked like a boat.
Oh man.
So I don't, it sort of added to the magic of this day.
Okay.
And and yeah, so I'm really drawing this story out. Sorry.
It's a great story, man. It's got natural disasters. It's got
Yeah,
it's got the
it
funny
was just
tea.
was just incredible. So then Adam, yeah, the last song we played of the day, Adam started, and he played that chord progression, which was it's the first chord progression of the song, which is that F major 7. I've got my guitar with me.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's great.
E7, A minor 7 to C7, and I just love this chord progression. It just felt so Adam to me. So I just kept playing it afterwards because it was so fun to improvise over. And then it just sort of morphed. I got a melody over that. And then, to keep writing the song, I just sort of stole all these things that I know Adam puts into his compositions,
Hmm.
whether they're his instrumental stuff or like stuff he's written for Nora. So, yeah. And then because it just always had the working title of the Adam Levy song, it just that's how it stuck. And
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, it's been out I think about 3 weeks now since I released it as we're doing the podcast,
Yeah.
the single of it. And so many people have messaged me just saying, man, I just see Adam Levy when I hear that song. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty cool compliment. And I always think of Adam is a pretty amazing hugger.
Okay. Okay.
Loves a good hug. So, whenever I hear that groove and that slow feel, I can just imagine him walking towards you and coming in for a big hug. And, that's hopefully what the song sort of sounds like.
Wow. Do you know what? I so much want to talk about this song because, and I mentioned Adam, just my relationship with his work.
Yeah.
When I heard the piece, I'll give you one more story. It just sounded like it was very sweet and authentic, and yeah, what I think of when I think of Adam Levy, just again through my very at a distance understanding of who he is. So yeah,
Yeah.
cool,
Yeah. I
man.
think it's done a pretty good job of sort of personifying him in a lot of ways. So,
And what does he make of this?
um, like Adam's a pretty modest guy. Before I did it, I kind of I just checked that chord progression wasn't a song he was just about to put out.
Oh, okay, yep, that would
And
have
he
been
was
a
like,
bummer.
no, I just made it up. I don't really know what it was. So I just checked that first. And yeah, he seems cool with it. I know he's written songs, named after other people before, so he gets it.
Yeah, right. Nice,
Yeah.
nice,
But
man.
it'll always be a pretty special song. So, and that chord progression is just like messed up. It's like, it's sort of always sort of turning on itself. So it's a real twister to play over
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So say it
to the,
again. So you
yeah.
F to. Can you run those chords again?
Can I play them or say
Yeah,
them?
yeah. Or either both.
Well, yeah, it's F major 7,
Yeah,
then E7,
yeah.
A minor 7
Ah, yeah, yeah. Then the C7.
to C dominant 7.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of A minor, A harmonic minor, A everything, and then that C7. That's the
Yeah,
special sauce.
throws you back into sort of that Mixolydian vibe for a second. And then you
Yeah,
can just go
nice.
to town on it and just get every other thing in between and go. And just completely mess it up.
Oh, that's cool, man.
As a side note, I had a lesson with Julian Lage a few weeks ago, and I figured the way to get the most out of it was just get him to improvise over a few of my chord progressions,
Oh,
just to see
that's
how he would approach
great.
it.
Oh, that's really cool.
And I got him to play over that chord progression, and it was terrifying. You know, someone with his knowledge and facility could just throw at it in, instantly. So it's a pretty cool framework to play with.
Nice. That's a really cool way to get a lesson as well.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful tone on that, and the next tune, number 3, Leaving, the beautiful tremolo. Is that an amp, or how are you pulling that tone?
All right. Yeah, it's just Strymon Flint, actually. It's
Oh,
nothing.
you've been playing that for a while. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I guess since our last podcast, I haven't really changed much.
Yeah.
I kind of found the gear I like, and have just sort of stuck with it. The only difference, I did use a different overdrive pedal on a lot of the album.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think I'm just looking at it now. All but one song, I had an overdrive pedal on for the whole song.
Okay.
So on Adam Levy and Leaving, both those songs I use my Nick Huber signature.
Okay. Yeah.
Rietbergen, so it's the giant telly vibe with gold foils, but beautiful. Hollow body, and it's a cross of a lot of things. And then I just had what did I use for an overdrive? A Free the Tone SOV 1 or SOV 2. I can't remember now.
Okay, nice.
So it's a little red pedal, like. Sort of most famously, it was remade a little while as a Matt Schofield signature pedal.
Okay, right.
And it just it has a really similar feel to the Nordvang number 1 overdrive I've been using for a long time, but it's physically smaller. Okay. which makes a bit of a difference when I was touring so much. So I got one of these, and then it produces just a little bit more bottom end than the Nordvang is a clon, so it tends to take out a bit of the bottom end as you increase the drive just a little bit. So this pedal doesn't do that as much, so it sort of helped do that. And because a lot of the guitar parts, and in general when I record, I tend to record at pretty low volumes, so I sort of just need those drive pedals just to give it a little push.
Yeah, okay. They seem to be quite dynamic as well, because sometimes you dig in, it gets a little gnarlier, you back off, and it seems like things are cleaning up a bit.
Yeah, and that's what's cool about both those pedals, is they do that really well. And actually that's why I ended up leaving. Oh, that's a pun that I wasn't meant to use. I ended up redoing a lot of the guitar parts from LA because, in classic guitar player form, I bought a new pedal about 2 weeks before going and decided to use that on the whole record.
Yeah.
And I got home and I just couldn't stand it.
Right.
It was a very dynamic, very hip current, drive pedal that everyone uses or is starting to use, and I got super excited about it. But I got home and went, oh, it's nice if I play soft, but then when I was playing hard, especially in the song Leaving, with it's got some pretty deep chords in it, like just big low E7 chords, they would just turn into fuzz, and I was like, oh, it's too much. The kind of thing that works in your headphones when you're in the studio, when your mix isn't that great and you're trying to smash through the songs in 3 days. But
sure,
yeah, long term, I just couldn't deal with that being my voice. So hence when I got back to Australia to sort of mix it at the little studio I've still got set up here, I decided that I better start again.
And that's where the Free the Tone came
in.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sounds cool, man. Hey, harmonically, there's lots of beautiful moments. A couple of tunes stuck out. Jungle, you seem to stretch out a little bit harmonically there, and Overuse. There was some really tasty dissonant stuff going on. Can you talk
Yeah,
through that stuff?
for sure. So Jungle, I think it really came from trying to get somewhere closer to like that Julian Large vibe.
Uh huh.
So if people aren't familiar with Julian Large, like go and check it out and just be terrified.
Yes. Yeah.
He is, you know, almost by far one of the most amazing technicians on the guitar, but at the same time plays all the cool things. So
Hmm.
I don't know how he does it. And so I sort of wrote that, I would say, in that vein. And in a lot of ways, it's sort of an extended blues,
Hmm.
the chord structure. And then I just sort of kept adding more changes as it went. And then, certain melodic things meant it extended the form. So I think it's more like 20 bars or something. I can't
Okay.
quite remember. Um, so it's, and so the idea was it for it to be a little bit of a twister as far as an improvisation sort of thing goes. And yeah, it's a fun one to play. And I to be honest, I feel like I'm still trying to work out how to play that song. Because while it seems to be very sort of straightforward jazz, it sort of isn't at the same time.
Hmm.
So I've especially been having a lot of fun in isolation times trying to work out how I might have to play that song solo
Okay.
at some
Okay.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. You seem to do some just some longer single note passages, I guess, in there in some parts. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I think that's definitely just trying, I've listened so much to Julian over the last few years that I think that just sort of flew in there and trying to recreate that but still stay true to who I am in a lot of ways. So,
sure.
um yeah, that's a fun tune.
That's great, man. How about overuse? What are those little dissonant kind of clusters I think
Yeah,
in the
so
head?
overuse is definitely a Schofield influence thing.
Hmm.
Especially I guess the tonality I'd used at the end, like using the bridge pickup sort of vibe. Um, and it was initially written out of I had to do a gig back in Australia. I think it was when I just got back and from the US, and I was just trying to flood the bank account any way I could. So I got a gig backing a singer that ended up being, I think it ended up being 3 hours longer than quoted,
Okay.
and and you know, it was just me and her, so I sort of had to know everything, and I'd done all the work, but then I got there and realized that she didn't really know the songs, so it was just, and then there were like fights at this place. I remember the bathroom got destroyed. There was a glassing. It was just
Wow. Rock and
ridiculous.
roll.
It was full rock and roll. And then by the end of the night, like I think just I because I get some bad carpal tunnel sort of stuff
Okay.
sometimes, but I find it's really connected to purpose and my emotion.
Hmm.
So like if I'm having a bad time, it gets really bad. And by the last song, I remember I could only play with my index finger above the neck to play the bass line. Like my hand just could not hold down the strings anymore.
Wow. Wow,
And
man.
I think I was only a couple of weeks from I think it was a week before I was heading back to the US on that 2-month tour, and I was slightly freaking out. So I woke up the next morning, and instead of like resting, I just picked up a guitar straight away. So this song sort of came out from that. And then I think within about half an hour, I felt like I could play normally again. It was like all my body just reset itself and all the stress dispersed. So that's why I wanted the song to have these sort of awkward harmony things in it. Have that idea of happiness but stress at the same time. So it is all those. The chord voicings are very close clustered. Like I think the very first chord of the melody, um, is technically a D7 sharp 9, but the minor third and the major third, which is in that chord, are together. So you've got that ugly
Yeah.
And then I just kept following that theme as I worked it out.
Can you play through that idea?
Sorry?
Can you play through that? The head sort of thing?
That is So it just, the idea was that it would constantly sort of clash in this weird little circle. And then, but then the chord progression underneath is fairly simple, and really at its essence is just 1 to 4. So, improvising over it was just fun because you could just sort of play with everything.
Yeah.
And sort of go on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really dug it. The one thing with your music, I don't know if I said this last time we spoke as well, but it reminds me a little bit of in the way that Eric Johnson's music impacts me, not sonically or compositionally, but even at its grittiest, there's it's like music without malice. There's always an optimism and I don't know, like a full-heartedness, something about it. And I think it's probably something to do with you, with your personality. And there's always some joy or something in there. Even in the gritty bits, there's some optimism, I guess. That's the word. I don't know if I'm just making that up or if that's...
Well, thank you, for one. But yeah, that's definitely always my goal, is that it's not about... like I just want the music to be happy. I don't really want, even when it is darker and, slower and a little bit heavier,
mm-hmm.
that there always would be an element of optimism to it. And, I sort of go under the moniker of a jazz guitarist, but that's probably just because there's nothing else that really describes things any better these days. As genres get more and more diverse in the hip hop realm, they get less diverse in everything else. So, but while I definitely have all that jazz harmony, the really intense out there jazz has never been something I've wanted to make, I guess. Like, I'll play it and definitely have fun with it, but as far as putting it out a record and having my name on it, it's just not somewhere I've wanted to be yet. So, definitely, projecting optimism and having an element of sharing that, and that if you're going to listen to instrumental music, that you come out feeling something or taking away from it in some way that you might not expect it has definitely been my goal.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. It's always interesting how we receive art and how it's projected and all that kind of stuff. But if it lines up, that's an interesting thing too. And I mean, you don't get the chance to ask the artist half the time, not half the time, most of the time. So yeah, interesting for me to be able to talk to you about that. That's really
interesting,
cool.
Man. I've got to go and listen to more Eric Johnson by the sound of it.
Maybe, and I don't know. It could be.
Well,
lots of things.
I know a good friend of mine. Well, he's the owner of Two Rock Amplifiers now, but he has a lot to do with Eric Johnson now.
Okay.
Eric's just started using their amps.
Oh,
and
wow.
He just says Eric is the best guy ever.
Right.
Like, he's just so lovely and so generous, and so obviously most of us know what a tone nut he is, but so enthusiastic about everything still. It's really it's really contagious, his enthusiasm for it all.
Yeah, nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you obviously you're a Two Rock guy. Did you take a Two Rock with you, or that's probably a harder thing to lug on an aeroplane?
Well, yeah, you don't lug amps around, and then there's always the power issue.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. Look, my relationship with Two Rock is they are basically family. Like, the two owners now are great friends. I've stayed at their houses, hanging out on multiple occasions. So I had a two rock in LA.
Yeah.
From quite a number of years ago that just lived there
Okay.
with a friend, and I'd just come and grab it.
Nice.
And when I got to LA last year, just because this was a bit of an older model, they hooked me up with their, latest little combo for me to have around LA. And then when I wasn't there, I'd just drop it into someone that they'd have someone that would want to check it out, an artist or something. So I'd just drop it to their house while I went on tour for a few weeks, and then go and steal it back from them. Because those amps, they're just a part of my sound as anything else. And the biggest thing with them is just the way they feel when you play it. It's the way I always equate it to it is just to the whole acoustic guitar thing, is that they almost feel like the soundboard of an acoustic guitar. They translate and compress the same way that an acoustic guitar does, at least for me. And that's sort of why I've stuck with them. And the first one I got was back in 2007. So it's been a 13, 14 year relationship with the company now. And, I'm happy to play through other amps. It's not that drastic, but they're just so good. I don't even bother looking at anything else. I'll still look at guitars and pickups all day, but yeah, amplifiers, it's just like, oh, I'm done. I don't need to really bother.
Yeah, I think you're doing all right too.
Yeah.
Having heard your tone, man, that's so good, so cool. What's happening on Citrus? What guitar are you playing on that? That seems to be a different place.
Yeah, cool. So that is and this is we'll go back into the full story of this as well. Citrus was written about one of the houses that we lived in, like in those 3-4 week periods when we were in LA. And it was very similar, like eerily similar to the house we lived in Newcastle for a long time, before we sort of packed all up and chased the dream.
Okay.
So it was sort of funny to be in this place that was like familiar, but also not at the same time.
Yeah, wow.
And so the house was on Citrus Avenue in Los Angeles, so that's where the name comes from. Okay. And when I was there, I was very fortunate to have a loan of one of Ken Parker's archtop guitars.
Ah, okay.
Which are a whole story in itself. So Ken Parker is the guy who's famous for designing the Fly.
Yes.
He won't mind me saying this. I think it's one of the ugliest guitars I've ever seen. I would never, ever pick one up until he explained the design principle behind it. And then it started to make sense.
Okay.
But Ken's first love, and what he first started building before he got into all this, was archtop acoustic guitars.
Yeah. And that's very rare as well. You didn't do a lot of them.
Well, initially, he made 3, I think, back in the 70s, and they were sort of revolutionary. And then he went on this tangent into the Fly and all that. Okay. And in mid 2000s, he started building archtop guitars again. And so I think he's built about 30 now of these guitars. He only builds 3 or 4 a year. They're that labor intensive. Wow. And they're works of engineering art. If you go and check them out, they're Ken Parker Archtops .com. And it's just there. And when you play one, you've never played anything like it. There is no other guitar like it that exists. It explodes when you've hit the low E string. You feel like the guitar is going to explode acoustically. They're just ridiculous. And Ken offered to loan me one for a while, and so I jumped at the opportunity to have it. So I wrote this song on that guitar, but unfortunately I don't have that guitar still, because they are in the vicinity of $40,000 US.
Okay, yeah. Fair enough.
So I have a similar acoustic archtop, which was built by Ryan Thorell in Logan, Utah, and it's quite a small body for an archtop guitar. It's 15 inches across, and it's got an oval hole. So the hole, it doesn't have F holes. It's like the hole is like where you'd normally have an acoustic. So it really is an acoustic guitar more than anything. And it's hard, especially like, talking about Australia, to hear a real archtop guitar because they're just not around and people don't make them. But there's just something really unique about that tonality that I really love. So that's what I used on this song. So it's what you're hearing is like there's a ribbon mic in front of the sound hole of the guitar, and then it's also plugged into my two rock.
I wondered.
So you're hearing both at the same time.
Okay.
The combination of sort of the two tones, so the magnetic pickup picking up the strings, and the actual real acoustic tone of the guitar. And then the pickup I have in that guitar at the moment is made by a company called Crevo, or a guy, I think. And so it's this super thin pickup, and it's very microphonic. So it picks up the whole tonality of the guitar through the magnetic pickup as well. Like you can tap the body of the guitar and it actually comes out through the amp. So I got that for that guitar just to really sort of convey the acousticness of it through any amp, which has been fun. So
nice.
And this was one again, like where I redid the guitar in Australia because I didn't take that guitar with me to the US when we did these sessions. And when I pulled the tone, I had so much fun playing it. Like, I think when I opened the session of the recording, I think I did like 30 takes of the song.
Okay.
I've got a feeling the take that's on the album is probably take one.
Okay.
But I just like the tone in my headphones of that somewhere in between an acoustic and an electric guitar was just so much fun to play with that. I must have recorded for hours just playing the song over and over again and exploring like just the sound of the instrument and the way the harmonics would hit through it all. So, that was so much fun to record that song.
That's a cool story too, because whenever you hear someone doing like 30 takes of something, it's usually the exact opposite, that they can't get something down or they're chasing a tone. You've just kept going because you're having a great time. That's really cool.
Well, look, let's be honest. In the moment, I was probably... I knew I'd got the tone. Like, I was having a ball, but I didn't think I was playing very well. So it was... I remember enjoying every take, but at the same time going, oh, I've got to get this. I've got to nail this. And then, as is often the case, you go back to the first take and go, oh, yeah, that was the one.
That's cool, man. Hey, so at the moment, Adam Levy and Shipping have been released as singles. When's the album being released in full?
So the album is coming out on August 7.
Okay, cool.
And so it has been delayed, the release. Like initially this whole album was meant to come out in May with touring through the US, but that all changed. So decided to sort of leave it and hopefully take the time to be able to actually promote an album properly rather than just put it out whilst I'm in the middle of everything else.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure. And what are your plans in regards to the US? Is it everything just too murky at the moment to know, or?
Look, there are no plans. That's the simplest thing I think with the world right now. It's just so what happened for us was our flight back to the US for the foreseeable future was March 26th, and I think everything went crazy about March 18.
Yeah. Yep.
Like I know I started to have gigs cancelled March 16.
Okay.
In the US, or people starting to go, oh, I don't think this is going to go ahead. And then it was like, oh, there's no international flights. The world's shutting down only a few days later. So I'm just so thankful to be in Australia now.
Yeah, great.
I'm so stoked for, a number of reasons. And I'm just making the most of that right now and just reevaluating sort of life from there. Because we were sort of just about to move, currently living with my amazing parents. So, which is amazing that we were able to spend that time with them and hang out. But we're just working out, okay, so we've basically got to set up life here again rather than LA. So it's all just the adventure of sort of doing that. And then obviously the future of touring is just so uncertain right now.
Sure. Yeah.
People are talking about booking things in, but in reality, I just can't see a lot of those things happening. In Australia. I think we'll be, sort of getting there soon. And even I've already done a couple of little shows in Newcastle, which has been fun, but also a little weird. But yeah, it's just who knows, maybe
Sure.
there'll be another album from me in a few months.
Okay. Stockpiling these songs.
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly.
Yeah, it is strange times. Even just in the last week, I mean, between us talking and what happens in a couple of weeks too, when your record comes out, who knows what's going to happen? But
yeah, that's the thing.
yeah, I mean, I was starting to get gigs. I mean, I had all gigs, like cover band gigs, weekend gigs cancelled, and then I've starting to get some dates back sort of towards the end of the year. My first gig's actually in Newcastle mid-August, but now, again, just with what's been going on the last week or so, I've got, I'm not totally sure that's going to happen as well.
It's just so hard to know. It's funny, like when you're, especially with music, because it's so dependent on planning ahead.
Yes.
And then, the couple of gigs I've had, I've basically been said, like they've been like on a Saturday or Sunday, and they've contacted me on Thursday. And I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. I think in 2 days' time I can do a gig. That's cool.
Right, yeah.
But planning any further than that, it just seems sort of weird. So, like, yeah, we're mid-July now when we're doing this interview. And so my album does come out in only like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And I've been debating whether to do an album launch, and I just can't commit yet.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, I mean, I don't know if it's any consolation, I don't know if that's the right term, but I guess everyone's in the same boat. People are
I think that's what makes it easier, because music and art becomes very competitive, and especially with like the whole social media thing, it's really easy to just go, oh man, that guy's doing that or getting that gig and this. And right now, like, we're all the same, and it's really easy. And that was a huge part of me moving to the US, is because it's really easy to go, oh wow, that person gets to do that because they're in LA. Whereas now we're almost in this weird situation where I've got people going, wow, you're doing a gig? Yes. I could only dream of doing a gig.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So, it does definitely make it easier that sort of competitive and comparing sort of thing is a little bit on the back burner right now, and you can maybe concentrate more on, actually making music and making art in some ways, as long as you can financially survive, which is, a whole nother.
Yeah, it's the other trick. Yes. Yeah, cool. Well, mate, I'm thrilled you are still making music, and as I've said, I love the album. I'm so happy I got to have I've been able to listen to it and get into it, and really excited about it coming out in August, and whatever the future looks like, and fingers crossed we'll head out of this tunnel. Really interested to see what happens next for you with it all, Adam.
Yeah, thanks so much, Matt. It's a pleasure to be back on here, and thanks for asking all the cool questions.
All right, there you go, Adam Miller. Now, the interview's not quite over yet, because when we finished up, we were still chatting for a while, and I forgot that Adam had his guitar, so I said, hey, could you just play us out a little bit, play something from the record, which he very kindly did, and we hear a little bit about the story of his new Collings guitar, so don't go anywhere. That's coming up in about 30 seconds. Before I go, just number one, thanks for tuning in. I'm thrilled that that people are enjoying the show and that you're listening and that you're taking the time. So thank you so much. If you're enjoying the show, why not share an episode through your social media or whatever? That would be really, really cool. We do have our PayPal tip jar if you want to drop a tip. And last thing, please check out Adam's new record. There'll be links in our show notes, and it's going to be well worth your time. It's a fantastic album, and I was super stoked to talk about it today. All right, back to the finish off with Adam. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, cool. Well, it's just my mic, and I just bought this Collings archtop guitar
Nice.
from Gladesville last week.
Oh, okay, from Guitar Factory?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the acoustic guys.
Yeah, just went a bit crazy and
Nice.
got this. It'd been sitting on their wall for years, so it's got that awesome in between electric archtop sound.
Yeah, man, it's so cool.
Yeah.
All right, so I've hit red again.
Cool. Well, we might as well play Adam Levy quick.
All right.
Here it is. Yeah.
Oh man, that's the best. Thank you so much.